The sky was too beautiful for what was about to happen. Pink and gold clouds drifted lazily above the ceremony grounds, while the pack gathered in neat rows, faces glowing in the fading sunlight. I stood at the center of it all, my white hair glinting like a mirror for the setting sun. I tried to look calm, but my hands trembled at my sides. Today was supposed to be the day I was claimed. My mate's ceremony. The day I'd stop being the strange, quiet girl everyone whispered about and finally belonged to someone. I searched the crowd until I found him, Darius Thorne. My fated mate. He looked every bit the future alpha, tall, broad shoulders, golden brown hair shining, confidence in every movement. He had once smiled at me, once told me that fate didn't make mistakes. But that was before. Now, his eyes were hard. Cold. Alpha Rowan, his father, stood beside him. His voice boomed across the clearing. Tonight, under the eye of the moon goddess, the bond will be sealed between Darius Thorne, heir to Crimson Hollow, and Lyra Vale, born under the moon's shadow. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Born under the moon's shadow. They always said it like it meant cursed. I swallowed hard and lifted my chin. Darius stepped forward. His movements were slow, deliberate. He reached out, then stopped. The murmuring grew louder. "I can't," he said. At first, I thought I'd misheard. "What?" He looked straight at me. I said, "I can't do this." The crowd fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Darius turned to the alpha, voice firm. "I reject the bond." My stomach dropped. The words didn't make sense. I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. "You, what?" He faced the crowd now, his voice rising. "Look at her. White hair, silver eyes, she doesn't look like one of us. The elders say her birth brought misfortune. How many hunts failed the year she was born? How many wolves died in the South battle that season? She's not a gift from the moon goddess. She's a warning." Gasps and murmurs filled the air like stinging insects. "Darius, stop," I whispered. "Please, not like this." He turned on me, his expression full of disgust. "You think I'd bind myself to that? To you? I won't tie my life to someone who looks cursed. You should have been gone years ago." I took a step back. The world blurred. Faces twisted with pity, others with cruel delight. Someone laughed quietly. Someone else spat on the ground. Alpha Rowan's deep voice cut through the noise. "Then it's decided. Lyra Vale, you are hereby banished from Crimson Hollow. Leave our lands before sunrise. Step foot on them again, and you'll be hunted as a rogue." My heart cracked like thin glass. Banished? But where would I go? The Alpha's cold gaze didn't waver. "The goddess will decide if you're meant to survive." The crowd began to move again, people murmuring, dispersing as if the spectacle was over. I stood alone in the center of the clearing, trembling. For a moment, I looked at Darius. I wanted him to look back. To show regret. But he turned away, already surrounded by friends, already laughing again, as though nothing important had just happened. I felt something inside me wither. A small, fragile part that had still believed I might one day be accepted. I walked away before anyone could see me cry. The forest at the edge of the pack's land looked darker than usual, the trees stretching like guards against the fading light. My few belongings fit into a small bag, one cloak, a water flask, and a crust of bread. That was all I owned, all I was allowed to take. I looked back once, just once. The pack house stood tall and glowing with firelight. Home, once. Now forbidden ground. A breeze stirred my hair, cool and gentle. For a moment, I thought I heard a whisper, a woman's voice, soft as the wind. "You were never theirs to keep." Then the wind died, and I walked into the trees. The forest became my world. Days blurred together. The first night, I barely slept. Every sound felt like danger, the crack of twigs, the distant howl of wolves. Hunger followed me like a shadow. My body ached, my feet blistered, and still, I walked. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stop. By the second day, I found a stream. I drank until I felt sick, then rested against a tree. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, soft and dappled. For a moment, I let myself imagine I was safe. That maybe, somehow, things would be okay. Then I heard them. Voices. Male. Rough. I froze. "Scents fresh," one said. "Smells like omega." Alone. My pulse jumped. Rogues. Their tone wasn't curious, it was hungry. I scrambled to my feet and looked around. The forest here was open, too few trees, nowhere to hide. My pale hair and skin would give me away instantly. Come on, I whispered to myself, scanning the area. A rustle came from behind me, then laughter. Well, a man's voice drawled. Look what we found. A little ghost girl wandering all by herself. I turned slowly. 5 men stepped out from the trees, clothes torn and dirty, eyes wild. Their scents were wrong, feral, unbound. Wolves without a pack, without reason. The one who'd spoken grinned, his face marked with a deep scar that ran from his jaw to his temple. Didn't your mama teach you not to wander, sweetheart? I forced my voice to stay steady. I don't want trouble. I'm just passing through. Oh, I think you'll give us plenty of fun, another said. He was smaller, rat-faced, his eyes crawling over me in a way that made my skin crawl. Pretty thing like you, even if you're a bit ghostly. My heart hammered so loud it drowned out everything else. I took a step back. Please. I have nothing you want. The scarred man tilted his head. You're wrong about that. They started closing in. I could smell them now, sweat, blood, the sour scent of old violence. My throat went dry. Stay back. I shouted. They laughed. Or what? The rat-faced man sneered. You'll cry? Something snapped inside me. Fear surged so strong it burned. I turned to run, but a hand shot out, gripping my arm like iron. The scarred man yanked me back and slammed me into a tree. Pain exploded through my back. Now, he said, breath foul and hot against my face. Don't be rude. We just want to get to know you. Let me go. I struggled, kicking, clawing, but his hold was too strong. Panic clawed up my chest. Please. I haven't done anything. Exactly, another said. You haven't done anything for us yet. They laughed again, cruel and sharp. I screamed. The sound tore from my throat, raw and desperate. It echoed through the trees, but no one would come. I knew that now. No pack. No alpha. No one cared what happened to a rejected omega. The scarred man's grin widened. Scream all you want. No one out here to help you. Tears blurred my vision. I reached up and raked my nails across his face. He roared in pain and slapped me hard enough to send stars bursting behind my eyes. Bad idea, little ghost, he snarled. You're going to regret that. They closed in. Their shadows swallowed me. I could smell their excitement, their cruelty. The world started shrinking, my breaths coming too fast. No. Not like this. The terror was a living thing now, clawing inside me. I felt something deep in my chest, something ancient, begin to stir. My heartbeat grew louder, thump, 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 until it felt like the forest itself pulsed with it. Then everything exploded. Light, silver, blinding, alive, burst out of me in all directions. The rogues were thrown backward as if struck by an invisible force. The air crackled with energy, the trees shuddering as a shimmering barrier formed around me, glowing faintly like moonlight on water. I stared at it, shaking. What is this? The rogues groaned, pushing themselves up. The scarred one touched his face, now bleeding from fresh scratches and burns. He stared at me with wide eyes. What did you do? I don't know. My voice trembled. Stay away. He snarled. Break it. Break that thing. They lunged again, fists and claws slamming into the barrier. Each impact rippled across the surface like waves, but it didn't break. I could feel the vibrations in my bones, like the power was connected to me somehow, feeding from my heartbeat. Inside the dome of light, my fear shifted into wonder. My hands glowed faintly when I looked at them. The energy moved with me, as if waiting for direction. Outside, the rogues grew more desperate, pounding, shouting curses. One screamed in pain when his claws cracked against the barrier. What kind of freak are you? The rat-faced one spat. I didn't answer. I didn't know. But I could feel the power draining me, each second heavier than the last. My knees trembled. You can't hold that forever, the scarred man taunted. When it drops, we'll tear you apart. He might have been right. My body felt hollowed out, my breath ragged. I couldn't think. I couldn't move. I just stood there, trembling inside my glowing cage, waiting for the inevitable. Then the forest went silent. Even the rogues froze, sensing it, the shift in the air, the sudden stillness that carried danger. A growl echoed through the trees. Deep. Powerful. Not one wolf. Many. The rogues looked around wildly. What was that? From the shadows, dozens of glowing eyes appeared, encircling the clearing. One by one, wolves stepped into view, massive, silver-furred, moving in perfect formation. 20 of them. And at the front stood a creature that made the others look small, a wolf as white as snow, eyes glowing ice blue. His presence filled the air, ancient and commanding. The rogue's bravado broke instantly. "Oh no," one whispered. "That's the Northern Guard. That's the Alpha King." The great wolf's growl deepened. Then, before my eyes, he shifted. The transformation was effortless, light and shadow twisting until a man stood where the beast had been. He was tall, taller than anyone I'd ever seen, with pale hair that caught the moonlight and eyes that burned cold. Scars marked his chest like battle stories written on skin. His power rolled off him like frost spreading across glass. "You're on my territory," he said, voice low and sharp as ice. "And you're attacking an Omega." The rogues dropped to their knees. "We didn't know, Alpha King. We thought she was a rogue." "There's no such thing as fair game when it comes to Omegas," he interrupted. "And she's under my protection now." My breath caught. His protection? I didn't even know him. He looked at his wolves. "Leave none alive." The clearing erupted into chaos. The Northern Guard moved as one, swift and silent, striking with lethal precision. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. When it was over, the rogues lay still, the air heavy with blood and silence. The Alpha King turned toward me. I stood trembling inside my fading shield. The light flickered like a dying candle. He approached slowly, his gaze curious but not cruel. He reached out, touching the barrier with one hand. Ripples spread from where his fingers met the light. "Beautiful," he murmured. "Perfectly formed. You can lower it now. You're safe." I don't know how," I stammered. "I don't even know what it is." He studied me for a long moment, his voice softening. "It's yours. A gift you were born with. You just need to trust it, and trust me." I wanted to believe him. My vision blurred, my legs wobbled. The light dimmed, shrinking as exhaustion took over. Then it vanished entirely. The world tilted. I started to fall, but he caught me before I hit the ground, strong arms lifting me as if I weighed nothing. "Easy," he said quietly. "I've got you." I looked up at him through half-lidded eyes. His face was hard, yet his expression was gentle, his blue eyes bright against the dark forest. "Who are you?" I whispered. "Cale Draven," he said. "Alpha King of the Northern Territories. And you, little one," his gaze lingered on me, thoughtful, almost reverent. "You just lit up my entire forest." The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was his faint smile, cold, dangerous, and strangely kind all at once. When I woke, the world felt strange. The scent of pine and smoke filled the air. My body was wrapped in warmth, soft blankets, furs, and the steady glow of a fire burning nearby. For a long moment, I didn't move. My limbs ached, but not in the way I expected. Someone had cleaned my wounds and dressed me in clean clothes, simple linen, loose and soft. I opened my eyes slowly. The room was large, carved from dark wood and stone. Tapestries hung on the walls, each one depicting wolves, stars, and a silver moon. Heavy furs covered the floor, and the air held the faint hum of magic, like the forest itself had followed me inside. My first thought was that I was dead. That this was the afterlife, the moon goddess's hall, maybe. But then the door creaked open. A woman entered, tall and graceful, with silver-white hair braided down her back and eyes the color of cold steel. She wore black leather armor and carried herself like a warrior. "You're awake," she said. Her voice was steady, calm, and carried authority. "Good. The Alpha will want to speak to you." I sat up quickly, dizzy from the motion. "Where am I?" "In the Frostlands," she said simply. "Shadow Fortress. You're safe here." "Safe." I repeated, unsure if I believed it. "I don't even know who you people are." The woman's lips curved slightly. "You will soon." She turned toward the doorway. "Alpha Cale." He appeared then, Cale Draven, the Alpha King. The man from the forest. The one who had commanded warriors like spirits of vengeance. He looked different in daylight. No less imposing, but more human. His long white blonde hair was tied back loosely, his sharp jaw dusted with a faint beard. His eyes were that same frozen blue, but they softened slightly when they met mine. "You're alive," he said quietly. "That's a relief." I blinked at him. "You sound surprised." He crossed the room and stopped near my bed. "The energy you released nearly drained you dry. Most wolves don't survive their first manifestation." "My, what?" You're awakening, he said. Your power has been dormant, waiting for the right moment to surface. That moment came when you were about to die. I stared at him, trying to process everything. That shield, that light. That was me? He nodded once. You're a shield weaver. The term meant nothing to me. A what? Cale exchanged a glance with the silver-haired woman. Then he pulled a chair closer and sat down beside me, his tone patient but firm. Shield weavers are rare, so rare that most packs believe they're myths. You can create barriers strong enough to stop claws, fangs, even magic. Some say the moon goddess made your kind to protect her chosen warriors. I shook my head. That can't be right. I'm not chosen. I'm rejected, he interrupted softly. Banished? Marked as cursed? My heart squeezed. I didn't answer, but he saw the truth in my silence. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. I've seen hundreds of wolves in my life, Lyra. None of them have ever created what you did last night. That light came from the moon herself. It doesn't choose mistakes. His words hit something deep inside me, a place filled with years of shame. For the first time, someone wasn't looking at me with disgust or fear. He was looking at me like I mattered. Why did you save me? I asked quietly. You didn't even know who I was. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. Because what those rogues did was unforgivable. And because when I saw that light, I knew the goddess had guided me there for a reason. Before I could respond, the woman at the door cleared her throat. Alpha, the healer is waiting. Cale nodded. Thank you, Winter. Send her in. Winter, so that was her name, left and returned a moment later with an older woman who smelled faintly of herbs and smoke. She had kind brown eyes and a steady smile that reminded me of safety. Hello, dear, she said, setting down a wooden bowl. I'm Sage. The pack's head healer. I need to check your injuries. I sat still as she examined me. Her hands were gentle, her touch glowing faintly with soft green light. She checked my wrists, my ribs, my pulse, and finally looked at Cale. Malnourished, drained, and bruised, but no permanent damage. She'll recover. Cale exhaled quietly, like he'd been holding his breath. Sage smiled at me. You've been through quite a storm, haven't you? But you're strong. You'll be just fine. Thank you, I whispered. Cale stood, towering over us both. You'll stay here until you've recovered. You'll have food, rest, and whatever you need. No one will harm you under my protection. That's my word. I wanted to protest, say I didn't belong here, but my strength was fading again. My eyelids grew heavy. The last thing I saw before sleep took me was Cale standing by the window, arms crossed, watching the horizon as snow began to fall outside. I woke later to darkness. A faint light glowed from the hearth, painting the walls in gold. Something warm sat beside me, a bowl of broth, still steaming. Someone had been here while I slept. I sipped slowly, the taste rich and comforting. Then I noticed movement near the door. Cale stood there again, watching quietly. He looked surprised that I was awake. You should be resting, he said. I've been doing plenty of that, I replied, my voice hoarse. Are you always this quiet when you walk into someone's room? A faint smile tugged at his lips. I didn't want to startle you. You don't seem easily worried, I said. I've learned to pay attention to small things. The people who need help rarely ask for it aloud. I looked down at the blanket. I didn't ask you to save me. No, he agreed. But you needed saving anyway. Silence stretched between us. I wanted to be angry, to remind him that I didn't belong here, but I couldn't. Something about his calm voice and steady eyes made it hard to look away. He walked toward the window and pulled the curtain aside. Moonlight spilled across the floor, silver and soft. This land is harsh, he said quietly. But it's honest. You'll find no lies here. I looked at him, his silhouette framed by the light. Why bring me here, Cale? You could have left me in the forest. He turned, eyes meeting mine. Because I don't leave people to die. And because I think the goddess sent you for a reason I haven't yet learned. The next morning, I felt strong enough to stand. Sage brought breakfast, bread, berries, and a bowl of spiced tea. I ate quietly while she checked my pulse again. Good, she said with a satisfied nod. Your energy's returning. Rest and food will do the rest. Thank you, I said. I don't know how to repay any of you. She smiled. You don't need to, dear. The Alpha sees purpose in everyone he saves. He'll find yours soon enough. After she left, I wandered to the window. The fortress stood high on a mountain ridge, overlooking endless forests blanketed in snow. The air shimmered faintly with mist, and I could see wolves patrolling below, their fur flashing white and gray in the distance. It was beautiful, cold, silent, but alive. A knock sounded at the door. "Come in," I said. Cale stepped inside, dressed in a dark coat lined with fur. His presence filled the space easily, commanding without effort. "You're up," he observed. "Good. I was beginning to think you liked my guest rooms too much." I smiled faintly. "You talk like you're used to rescuing strangers." "Not strangers," he said. "Just people who deserve better than what the world gave them." He motioned for me to follow. "Come. There's something I want to show you." We walked through long halls lit by torches. The fortress was both ancient and alive, stone walls humming faintly with power. Wolves greeted Cale respectfully as we passed, bowing their heads. None of them looked at me with disgust. Only curiosity. He led me outside into a wide courtyard. Training grounds stretched before us, filled with warriors sparring under the cold morning light. Their movements were graceful and precise, nothing like the chaos I'd seen in my old pack. They fought with purpose. "These are my elite," Cale said. "The Northern Guard. Every one of them is trained to fight not just with strength, but with discipline." I watched in awe as two wolves shifted mid-battle, movements synchronized like a dance. "They move like one mind," I said. "That's because they trust one another completely," he replied. "Trust is stronger than brute force." We stopped at the edge of the grounds. Cale turned to me. "Your power saved your life, Lyra. But you don't understand it yet. You need to learn control." I frowned. "I don't even know where to start." He stepped closer, eyes glinting. "Then let's find out." Before I could ask what he meant, he lifted a hand, and sent a pulse of energy toward me. It was invisible, but I felt it like a rush of air. Instinctively, I flinched, raising my arms, and the shield appeared. Silver light rippled around me, forming a dome. I gasped. "You could have warned me." Cale smirked slightly. "Warning dulls instinct." The barrier flickered, struggling to hold. I felt it pulling from me, draining energy with every heartbeat. "I can't keep it," I said, my voice strained. "Yes, you can," Cale said calmly. "Breathe. Don't fight the power. Guide it." I focused on his voice, on the steady sound of the wind. My pulse slowed. The barrier steadied, glowing brighter. I felt the fear ease into calm. Cale's eyes widened slightly. "Good. Very good." The light shimmered, then faded as I released it. My knees wobbled, but I stayed standing. He was already beside me, offering his hand. "You learn fast," he said. I hesitated, then took his hand. His grip was strong, warm even in the cold. "You could have just explained it," I said, half teasing. He smiled faintly. "You would have doubted yourself. Now you know you can." We walked along the edge of the courtyard. I felt lighter, as though the air itself had changed. "How did you know I'd survive that?" "I didn't," he admitted. "But I've learned that power responds to purpose. You want to live. That's enough." "Why help me?" I asked again. "I'm no one important." He stopped, his gaze sharp. "That's where you're wrong. There's a prophecy among my people, a legend about a moon forged. A wolf born with silver light who would either bring salvation or ruin. You may be her." I stared at him, stunned. "That's impossible. I'm just different," he interrupted softly. "And difference is often the first sign of destiny." We stood there in silence. His expression softened again. "Whether prophecy or coincidence, the moon led me to you. I don't believe in mistakes." Before I could answer, Winter approached, her expression serious. "Alpha, scouts report movement near the southern border. Rogue traces." Cale's calm expression hardened. "Send a team. I'll join shortly." Winter nodded and left. Cale turned back to me. "Rest for now. You've done enough for one day." I hesitated. "You're leaving?" "For a few hours," he said. "My guards will ensure you're safe." He started to walk away, but I couldn't help calling after him. "Cale." He paused. "Thank you," I said softly, "for believing I wasn't a mistake." For a moment, he didn't move. Then he turned, eyes meeting mine, voice quiet but firm. "You were never a mistake, Lyra. You're the reason I believe the moon still watches over us." And with that, he was gone, leaving me standing in the snow, the faint echo of his words warming the cold inside my heart. The following days passed in a blur of snow and sound. The fortress was never truly silent. Wolves sparred in the courtyards, boots echoed through stone corridors, and the wind hummed softly against the tall towers. Yet inside that noise, there was a rhythm. Everything in Kale's territory had a purpose, a balance. I woke each morning to Sage bringing tea and food, and then Winter would arrive with a few words about the day's training. She was not gentle, but she was fair. The Alpha says your control will come with practice, she told me. If you mean to stay here, you'll learn to use what's inside you without losing yourself to it. I don't even know what it is, I said the first day she led me to the inner courtyard. Winter gave me a level look. Power. The kind most would sell their souls for. So don't waste time doubting it. The courtyard was ringed by high walls, a circle of smooth stones that gleamed faintly under the morning light. Warriors trained in groups of 4, moving like storm winds, their breath visible in the cold air. Kale stood at the far end, his coat dark against the pale snow, talking with 2 lieutenants. When he saw me, his eyes lit slightly. Good. You're ready. I'm not sure about that, I muttered. He smiled a little. You don't need to be sure. You only need to begin. He gestured for me to stand in the open space between us. You've already shown you can protect yourself when your life depends on it. But true mastery is using that same power when you choose, not just when you're afraid. He drew a circle in the snow with his boot. This is your space. Fill it. Let your shield come from intent, not panic. I stared at the circle. My breath clouded the air. How? Close your eyes, Kale said. Think of something you want to protect. I obeyed, shutting out the world. For a moment, I saw nothing but darkness. Then I pictured the faces of the rogues from the forest, the fear, the helplessness, and pushed that memory away. I searched instead for something gentle. The warmth of Sage's voice, the kindness of Kale's words, the feeling of being safe for the first time. My palms tingled. When I opened my eyes, a faint silver shimmer floated in the air around me, forming a thin veil that pulsed in time with my heartbeat. Kale nodded. Good. Now hold it. I did, at least, I tried to. The light flickered, wavering like a candle flame in wind. Sweat gathered on my forehead. The barrier trembled, then shattered into mist. I can't keep it, I gasped. Kale stepped forward, his expression calm. You kept it long enough. Again. So we did it again. And again. By midday, my legs ached and my arms trembled, but each time the light appeared faster, steadier. Kale's patience never faltered. He didn't raise his voice, didn't show disappointment, only quiet encouragement that felt heavier than praise. When the bell rang for the midday meal, I sank to my knees, exhausted. Kale offered his hand. You've done well. Enough for today. I hesitated, but took it. His grip was warm, solid. When he pulled me to my feet, he didn't let go immediately. His eyes studied mine. Do you see now? You aren't powerless. You never were. I'm learning to believe that, I said softly. Good. He released me and nodded toward the hall. Eat. Rest. Then come find me this evening. There's more to this place you should see. The dining hall was vast, filled with long wooden tables and the hum of conversation. Warriors ate together, no ranks, no separation. They greeted me with nods, not stares. No one whispered. No one looked disgusted. When I sat down, a broad-shouldered man with golden hair smiled at me. You must be the new one, he said cheerfully. I'm Storm. The Alpha told us to make sure you eat enough to keep the moon burning inside you. I blinked. The moon? He grinned. That's what we call your power. Moonfire. Beautiful thing, though I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of it. Another woman, dark-haired and sharp-eyed, set down a tray beside me. Don't mind Storm, she said. He thinks too much and eats too little. River, Storm said in mock irritation. You wound me. They laughed, and the sound eased something in my chest. For the first time in years, I laughed too. By the time Kale found me again that evening, I had eaten more than I thought possible. He watched me quietly, the corner of his mouth lifting. You look less like someone expecting to vanish. Because I'm not alone here, I said honestly. Your people are different. They are survivors, Kale replied. Every one of them came here because they had nowhere else to go. You'll find the Northern Guard is built on second chances. He gestured for me to follow him again. We walked through the fortress until we reached a high balcony overlooking the valley. The sun was sinking, casting the snow in shades of violet and gold. Below, the pack's torches began to light one by one, small stars against the white expanse. "It's beautiful," I whispered. Kale leaned against the railing. "This was wasteland when I inherited it. Broken packs, starving wolves. I rebuilt it into something worth protecting." He turned to me. "I know what it's like to be cast out by your own kind. That's why I made this place, so no one else would have to beg for belonging." "Then why me?" I asked. "Why bring me here? You didn't know I'd survive." He met my gaze, his voice low. "Because I saw the light inside you, Lyra. And because the world breaks those who don't fight for their own worth. I won't let it break you." For a moment, I didn't breathe. Then he straightened, the moment passing. "Come. There's still work to do tomorrow." By the next sunrise, I thought I was ready for anything. I was wrong. Kale had gathered several of his officers in the training yard. Winter stood at his side, her expression unreadable. The air crackled faintly with energy. "This will test your control," Kale said. "You've learned to summon your shield. Now you'll learn to trust it." "How?" I asked, already uneasy. He smiled slightly. "By letting me try to break it." Before I could protest, Kale's aura flared. It wasn't visible at first, just a pressure, a weight in the air that made the snow hiss underfoot. Then tendrils of dark energy shimmered around him, pulsing like veins of shadow. His eyes glowed faintly blue. I swallowed hard. "That seems a little unfair." "Life rarely is," he said. "Form your shield." I raised my hands, calling up the silver light. It shimmered to life around me, strong and smooth. Kale moved slowly at first, his energy brushing against the barrier like a test. Then he struck. The impact sounded like thunder. The shield held, but the ground cracked beneath my feet. I gasped, pushing back with everything I had. "Hold," Kale ordered, his voice a steady rhythm beneath the roar. "Do not fear it. Command it." I focused, every nerve burning. The light brightened, growing thicker, stronger. He struck again, harder this time. Sparks flew where his shadow met my light, scattering through the air like tiny stars. I stumbled, falling to one knee. "I can't." "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "You are the power, not its prisoner. Own it." Something inside me snapped, not in fear, but in determination. I surged to my feet, shouting wordlessly as the shield expanded outward in a pulse of light. It struck Kale square in the chest, sending him sliding back across the snow. The yard went silent. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd made a mistake. Then Kale started to laugh, a deep, genuine sound that echoed through the courtyard. "Good," he said, brushing snow from his coat. "Better than good." I blinked, breathless. "You're not angry?" "Angry?" He smiled, almost proud. "You just did what no one else has managed in years. You pushed me back." Winter stepped forward, eyes glinting. "The last person who managed that was Kale's father." Kale gave a small nod. "He taught me to respect power, even when it surprises me." I let out a shaky laugh. "I thought you were trying to kill me." "If I had been," he said lightly, "you'd still be standing. That's the point." The others dispersed, murmuring quietly. Kale remained, his gaze steady on me. "You're stronger than you think, Lyra. But strength without control is a storm. We'll keep training until you can decide when to be lightning and when to be calm skies." "I'll try," I said, still catching my breath. He tilted his head. "You don't need to try. You just need to believe." That evening, I joined him again on the balcony. The night was clear, the moon high above, silver light spilling across the mountains. Kale stood silently for a while before speaking. "Do you know what they used to call my people?" he asked. "Shadowborn. Cursed by the moon. They said our blood was tainted by darkness." I looked at him. They were wrong. "Maybe," he said. "But the belief nearly destroyed us. It took me years to convince the packs that strength and darkness aren't the same thing." He turned, his gaze finding mine. "You remind me of that fight. You shine even when people fear your light." The wind tugged at my hair. I spent years wishing I could hide it. "And now?" "Now," I said quietly, "I think I'd rather learn to use it." Kale smiled then, not the sharp, cold curve I'd seen before, but something softer, almost warm. "Good. The moon doesn't hide its light, even in darkness." We stood there a while longer, saying nothing. The air between us was calm but alive, like a heartbeat shared between two people who understood what it meant to be broken and still choose to rise. When I finally turned to leave, Kale spoke once more. Lyra. I looked back. Yes? If the light ever falters, he said softly, remember, shadow can only exist because something is shining. I carried those words with me long after I'd left the balcony, their echo warm in my chest. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking away from something. I was walking toward it. The morning after my last training session, a low fog rolled across the fortress. It softened the stone walls and wrapped the courtyards in pale mist. I sat by the window of my room, watching frost climb the glass, lost in thought. For the first time in my life, I felt a sense of calm, but beneath that calm was an unease I couldn't name. Something had shifted in the air, a whisper of change waiting to break. A knock came at my door. Come in, I said. Winter entered, her silver hair gleaming even in the dim light. She carried a bundle of scrolls. The Alpha wants you in the archives, she said. He says it's time you learned where your power comes from. My heartbeat quickened. He knows. He knows more than most, she replied. And he doesn't like keeping people in the dark. The archives were deep beneath the fortress, vaults carved into the mountain long before Kale's time. The air smelled of parchment, smoke, and secrets. Shelves stretched high above, filled with scrolls wrapped in silk and leather. Kale stood near a long table, studying an ancient map spread across it. When he saw me, he gestured for me to come closer. Lyra, he said quietly, I've been reading through the old records. There's something you need to see. He unrolled another parchment. It showed the symbol of a full moon crossed by a line of light, almost identical to the shape that had appeared on my palms when I'd first summoned my shield. My throat tightened. What is that? The crest of the moon forged, Kale said. A bloodline of wolves blessed, or cursed, depending on who you ask, by the moon goddess herself. They were born to protect her chosen, but their power frightened the packs. Over time, they were hunted until none remained. I traced the symbol with my finger. You think I'm one of them? I don't think, he said. I know. I shook my head. That's impossible. My parents were ordinary. They died when I was a child. He nodded slowly. I looked into your pack's history. Your mother, Elara Vale, came from the Southern Territories. Records say she was a healer. But her bloodline vanishes beyond that. No birth records, no ancestry. It's as if she appeared out of nowhere. A cold realization settled over me. You're saying she hid who she was? Kale's gaze was steady. Yes. And someone helped keep that secret buried. I suspect your former Alpha knew. The idea hit like a blade. Alpha Rowan? Possibly even the Council, Kale said. Your rejection may not have been about your appearance at all. It may have been about what you are. I tried to speak but my voice faltered. They knew what I could be. They knew and banished me anyway. Because they were afraid, Kale said. Power frightens those who rely on fear to rule. I turned away, gripping the edge of the table. All those years I thought I was worthless. I thought the goddess had cursed me. He stepped closer, his tone soft. You were never cursed. You were hidden. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Anger, sorrow, and disbelief tangled inside me. Why would my mother hide it? Because the Moon-Forged were hunted to extinction, Kale said. If anyone knew she carried that bloodline, they would have killed her, and you. I pressed a trembling hand to my chest. So all of this, everything that's happened, it was planned long before I was born. Fate rarely asks permission, Kale said quietly. But it gives us choices once it finds us. Before I could answer, Winter entered again, her face grim. Alpha, she said, we intercepted a message from the south. The Crimson Hollow Pack has been sending scouts near the borders. Kale's expression darkened. Scouts. Yes. They're looking for something, or someone. I didn't need to ask who. My pulse quickened. They know I'm here. Kale's voice hardened. Let them come. If they cross the border, they'll answer to me. Winter hesitated. If they learn she's alive, they may send more than scouts. Then we'll be ready, Kale said. When Winter left, I turned to him. You're risking your people because of me. I'm protecting my people, Kale corrected. You're one of them now. I stared at him, overwhelmed. You barely know me. I know enough, he said. You have the heart of a guardian. You fight even when you're afraid. That's more than most. The weight in my chest eased a little. I don't know if I'm ready to face them. Then we'll make you ready, Kale said. No one will ever use your past against you again. Not while I draw breath. Something in his words reached into the hollow part of me and filled it with warmth. I looked at him then, not as a king, but as a man who understood what it meant to be hunted for what you couldn't change. Thank you, I whispered. He gave a faint smile. You don't owe me thanks, Lyra. You owe yourself forgiveness. That night, I couldn't sleep. The truth about my bloodline replayed over and over in my mind. I wandered the halls until I reached the courtyard. Snow fell quietly, the flakes catching the light from the torches. I stood there until my fingers went numb. A soft voice came from behind me. You should be resting. I turned. Kale was standing there again, wrapped in a dark cloak. His breath curled in the cold air. Couldn't sleep? He asked. I shook my head. Too many questions. He walked closer, his steps slow and soundless. Questions are good. It means you're still fighting. I'm not sure what I'm fighting anymore, I admitted. The past? Fate? Myself? Maybe all three, Kale said. But the past can't chain you if you refuse to kneel to it. We stood side by side in the falling snow. He looked out over the frozen trees. When I was your age, I thought the world owed me answers. Then I learned the truth. Some answers are meant to be made, not found. I looked up at him. And what did you make? His gaze softened. A home for the broken. The words lingered in the air between us, warm against the cold. I didn't realize I was crying until he reached out and brushed a tear from my cheek with his thumb. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. You don't have to be strong all the time, he said quietly. Not here. For once, I believed him. The next morning, the fortress woke before dawn. The sound of bells cut through the air, sharp and urgent. I rushed from my room, still half-dressed, as warriors sprinted through the halls. Winter met me on the stairs, armor already fastened. What's happening? I asked. Rogues, she said grimly. A small band breached the southern ridge. The Alpha's already outside. I followed her through the fortress gates and into the open. Snow whipped around us, glittering in the morning light. Beyond the walls, the tree line rippled with movement, figures darting between the shadows. Kale stood at the front lines, sword drawn, his wolves arrayed behind him like silver ghosts. When he saw me, his expression tightened. You shouldn't be here. I can help, I said. Not yet. You're still learning. I won't hide, I said, stepping forward. Not again. For a heartbeat, he studied me, then nodded once. Stay near me. The rogues emerged, 10 of them, their eyes wild, movements uncoordinated. They rushed toward us with a roar. Kale's warriors met them head-on, steel and claws flashing in the snow. One rogue broke through the line, heading straight for Kale. I saw it before he did. Without thinking, I raised my hands. The air shimmered, and a barrier burst into life between Kale and the rogue. The attacker slammed into it and fell, dazed. Kale turned, shock flickering in his eyes. Lyra. I'm fine, I called. But as I lowered the shield, something strange happened. The light didn't fade. It stretched toward him instead, thin threads of silver connecting to the dark aura that surrounded him. The air crackled. Power surged through me, through him, a current linking us together. My vision filled with light and shadow twisting as one. Kale's voice broke through the hum. Lyra, stop. I can't, I gasped. The energy pulsed wildly, forming a mark across my left shoulder, burning like fire. The same light mirrored on his chest where the threads touched. Then the world exploded into silence. When I came back to myself, the battle was over. The rogues lay unconscious or dead. Kale was kneeling beside me, breathing hard. His hand hovered over the glowing mark on his chest. What happened? I whispered. He looked at me, his eyes full of something between awe and fear. The bond, he said quietly. You forged a bond. I blinked. A what? A soul bond, he said. It happens only once in a lifetime, if at all. When two powers merge under threat, their essences entwine. I stared at him, disbelieving. That can't be real. His hand brushed my shoulder where the mark still glowed faintly, a crescent moon surrounded by shadow. It's very real. And now, no matter what happens, our fates are tied. The idea sent a shiver down my spine. So I'm linked to you? Yes, Kale said simply. By the goddess's design or our own, I don't know. But why? Why me? He hesitated, his voice lower. Because you didn't protect me out of duty. You did it out of choice. That's what the moon recognizes, the heart's truth. We sat there in the snow, the world quiet around us. The wind had died, and sunlight filtered through the clouds, painting everything gold. I could feel the mark's warmth fading, but the connection lingered, a soft hum beneath my skin, a steady awareness of his presence. Finally, I whispered, "Can it be undone?" "No," he said. "But I wouldn't want it to be." Something in his tone made my breath catch. I looked away quickly, afraid of what I might see if I met his eyes for too long. Back inside the fortress, the healers checked us both. Sage frowned as she examined the mark. "This is old magic," she said. "Older than the packs themselves. You've been chosen by the goddess's hand, whether you wanted it or not." I sighed. "That doesn't make me feel better." Sage smiled faintly. "Fate rarely asks if we're ready for it." When she left, Kale remained beside me. He looked tired but calm. "You should rest." "You too," I said. He gave a small laugh. "I doubt I could. My chest feels like it's carrying lightning." I couldn't help smiling. "Then we match." Silence stretched again, gentle this time. Then Kale spoke, his voice quiet. "This bond changes things, Lyra. You'll feel what I feel at times, fear, anger, maybe even pain." "Then you'll feel mine," I said. "Seems fair." He smiled faintly. "You're taking this better than I expected." "I've already been rejected, banished, nearly killed, and struck by divine magic," I said. "At this point, bonding with a king feels almost normal." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "You surprise me." "And you confuse me," I replied. "I don't understand how you can be so calm." "Because I stopped fighting fate a long time ago," he said. "It has a strange way of leading us where we belong." I met his gaze. "Do you think that's what this is? Belonging?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face, his fingers lingering near the mark on my neck. "I think," he said softly, "that the moon never makes mistakes." For a long time, neither of us moved. Outside, snow began to fall again, whispering against the windows like the soft voice of something ancient watching over us. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid of what came next. Because somewhere in that silence, I realized the truth. Whatever this bond meant, whatever it brought, I wasn't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, I never had been. Snow kept falling for days, covering the fortress and the forests beyond like a blanket of peace after the storm. Inside the great halls, torches burned brighter, and the usual noise of steel and training softened to a quiet rhythm of recovery. Yet beneath that calm, something new hummed through the air, an invisible thread between Kale and me. I could feel him even when he wasn't near. His heartbeat echoed faintly in my chest, steady and powerful. Sometimes, when I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of his thoughts, fragments of memory, a flicker of worry, a shadow of exhaustion. The bond was alive, whispering through every breath. At first, it frightened me. Then I began to listen. Winter didn't treat me any differently. "The bond doesn't make you stronger," she said when we returned to the training yard. "Only your will does." Still, I felt different, sharper, steadier. When I raised my shield, it formed faster, almost as if the energy obeyed before I called. Kale watched from the sidelines, arms crossed, offering quiet advice when I faltered. "Don't force it," he said once. "Let it flow like water. Power that obeys fear is fragile. Power that follows calm will never break." The word stuck in my mind. I practiced until the light no longer flickered, until my shields curved smooth as glass. When Kale struck at them with his dark energy, the impact rippled outward, scattering snow and leaving my barrier glowing stronger than before. "Good," he said. "You're learning balance." I wiped sweat from my forehead, breath fogging the cold air. "Or maybe your attacks are just getting weaker." That earned me the rarest thing from him, a small, unguarded laugh. "Careful, Lyra. I could take that as a challenge." "I'm counting on it," I replied, surprising even myself with the playfulness in my tone. Winter raised an eyebrow. "You two sound less like teacher and student and more like rivals." Kale glanced at her. "Perhaps we are. The best kind of rivals, those who make each other stronger." I tried not to smile, but I failed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of my own strength. For the first time, I wanted to see how far it could go. Later that evening, Kale invited me to walk with him beyond the fortress walls. The moon hung low, casting the snowfields in silver light. We followed a narrow path that led to a hidden garden nestled among black pines. The air was fragrant with frost and faint traces of flowers that somehow bloomed even in the cold. "What is this place?" I asked softly. "The Garden of Night," he said. "It was planted by my mother. She believed the moon's blessing would let her flowers grow even through winter. She was right." He knelt beside a patch of glowing blue blossoms. "She used to tell me that beauty and pain live side by side. These flowers bloom brightest in the coldest nights." I crouched beside him, touching one carefully. It glowed softly beneath my fingers, warm against my skin. "They're beautiful." He looked at me, eyes gentle. "So are you." The words caught me off guard. I turned away, pretending to focus on the flowers, but my cheeks burned. "You don't have to say things like that," I muttered. "I don't say what I don't mean," he replied simply. Silence stretched between us, soft but full of unspoken thoughts. I could feel his emotions through the bond, calm on the surface, but underneath it, something deeper, warmer, tangled with restraint. "You can feel it too, can't you?" he said quietly. I hesitated. "The bond?" He nodded. "It links more than just power. Emotion travels through it. You feel what I feel." "Then what is this?" I whispered. "This warmth, this pull between us." Cale's gaze didn't waver. "That, Lyra, is what happens when two souls are connected by choice and not by force. The bond amplifies what already exists." I looked at him, my heart beating faster. "And what already exists?" He gave a faint, knowing smile. "You already know." I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't. The truth lived too close to the surface now. Every look, every word between us carried a weight that no training could ignore. But before I could speak, Cale rose to his feet and extended a hand. "Come. You've trained enough for today. You should rest." I took his hand, and the warmth of his touch sent a spark through the bond. When he helped me up, he didn't let go right away. For a heartbeat, we stood too close, the cold air thick with something neither of us could name. Then he released me, his voice softer. "Good night, Lyra." "Good night, Cale." He turned and walked back toward the fortress, his silhouette fading into the silver light. I stayed behind a moment longer, watching the flowers sway in the quiet wind, glowing like small pieces of moonlight. And I realized the truth I had been avoiding since that first night. Cale wasn't just my protector. He was becoming my reason to fight. Over the next week, the bond grew stronger. Sometimes I heard his thoughts faintly, just impressions, flashes of emotion that weren't mine. Other times, I'd find him waiting for me before I even realized I was looking for him. It was both terrifying and comforting. One evening, as a storm rolled across the mountains, thunder echoing through the halls, I found Cale alone in the war room. Maps and reports were scattered across the table. His expression was tight, eyes shadowed with worry. "You're thinking too loudly," I said from the doorway. He looked up, startled for a moment, then sighed. "I didn't mean to. The bond's stronger when I'm distracted." "What's wrong?" "Scouts brought word from the borders," he said, leaning over the table. "Crimson Hollow is moving again. Their alpha has called for an alliance with other southern packs." "Against us?" "Against you," he corrected. "They know you're here. They want the moon-forged power." I felt the old fear stir in my chest. "So it begins." He crossed the room, standing close enough that I could feel his heat. "I won't let them touch you. They'll have to go through me first." I tried to keep my voice steady. "You can't protect everyone from everything, Cale." He smiled slightly. "Watch me." I reached for the edge of the table, gripping it until my knuckles whitened. "You'd risk your people, your kingdom, just to protect me?" He met my gaze. "Not because I have to. Because I want to." I swallowed hard. "That sounds dangerously close to something else." "Then I'll say it clearly," he said, stepping closer. "I don't know when it happened, Lyra. Maybe when you stood against me in the courtyard. Maybe when you walked into this fortress with your head held high after losing everything. But I see you. Not as a symbol, not as a weapon. As you." The words hit me like sunlight after years of cold. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "Cale?" He reached out slowly, brushing a lock of hair behind my ear. "You don't have to say anything now. I only needed you to know." Before I could respond, lightning flashed outside, thunder shaking the walls. The tension between us cracked like the storm above. I could feel his emotions through the bond, warmth, longing, restraint. I wanted to run from it, but instead I whispered the truth. I feel it too. His breath caught. You shouldn't. I know, I said softly. But I do. The storm raged outside, but inside, the silence between us was louder. He took a small step back, his jaw tight. If I let this happen, Lyra, it won't be something I can undo. Bonds like ours don't fade, they deepen. Then stop trying to fight it, I said. I'm done pretending I don't care. He looked at me for a long time, long enough for thunder to roll again across the mountains. Then he turned away, his voice rough. Not yet. Not while the world still sees you as a weapon to claim. I won't let our connection become something they can use against you. I wanted to argue, but I saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't rejecting me, he was protecting me. Still, the ache of restraint settled deep in my chest. He walked to the door, then paused. When this is over, when the threats are gone, we'll talk again. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with the echo of his heartbeat still thrumming through mine. The first sign of war came 3 nights later. The wind carried scents that didn't belong, foreign wolves, strange metals, and smoke. Winter confirmed it at dawn, a Crimson Hollow scouting party had crossed the river. Cale called his commanders to the council chamber. I sat beside him, feeling the weight of every gaze. None questioned my presence now, the mark on my shoulder glowed faintly through my clothes, proof of the bond everyone knew existed. Storm slammed his fist on the table. They're testing us. Next, they'll march in full force. Then we meet them before they reach our borders, Cale said. We don't wait to be surrounded. Winter nodded. Agreed. But they'll bring allies. We'll be outnumbered. Cale's eyes flicked to me. Numbers mean nothing if they face a shield that can't be broken. I froze. You want me to fight? You already did, he said gently. This time, you'll do it with control. Fear and pride warred inside me. And if I fail? He leaned forward, his voice low but steady. Then I fall with you. But we won't fail. The room fell silent. Every wolf there bowed their heads, a wordless pledge of trust. I'd never felt anything like it, unity without hesitation. We moved before nightfall. Snow fell thick over the valley, muffling the sound of our steps. I rode beside Cale at the front of the formation. The moon was hidden behind clouds, but her light still guided us faintly. Do you remember the first time I saw you? He asked suddenly, his voice low. I smiled faintly. I remember waking up terrified. I remember thinking you looked like something the moon carved herself, he said. And realizing the world would never be the same. I turned to look at him, the cold wind tugging at my cloak. You talk like someone expecting to die tomorrow. He met my gaze. No. I talk like someone who finally has something worth living for. Before I could answer, the howl of an enemy scout broke through the air. The fighting began at dawn. The valley filled with the sounds of war, snarls, steel, and the crash of power against power. Crimson Hollow's forces swarmed from the trees, led by none other than Darius Thorne. He looked older, harder, but the same cruel smile twisted his mouth when he saw me. So the ghost girl lives, he sneered. And hides behind another alpha. Cale stepped forward, his voice like thunder. Say one more word and you won't have a tongue left to sneer with. Darius laughed. You think your northern laws scare me? I'll take her power myself and burn your kingdom with it. He lunged, his pack following. Cale's wolves met them head-on. The air crackled with magic and fury. I raised my hands, summoning the shield. The silver dome expanded outward, covering our warriors as arrows rained from above. Each impact sparked harmlessly against the barrier. My strength surged through the bond, Cale's power flowing into mine like a current. We moved as one. Then Darius turned his fury toward me. He broke from the line, charging straight at the shield. You should have stayed banished, he roared. I met his eyes through the barrier. And you should have stayed small. He struck, and the shield pulsed, exploding outward in a wave of moonlight. The blast threw him and his soldiers backward, scattering them like leaves. The snow shimmered in the light, the battlefield glowing like day. Cale's voice carried through the chaos. Now, Lyra. I released the shield, directing its energy forward, forming a wall of silver fire between us and the enemy. The remaining rogues faltered, terrified. Cale's army surged forward, driving them back across the river. When it was over, the air fell silent except for the whisper of falling snow. The enemy fled. The valley was ours. I sank to my knees, exhausted, the light fading from my hands. Cale was there in an instant, catching me before I fell. You did it, he said, his voice rough. You saved us. I looked up at him, breath trembling. We did it. He smiled then, pure, unguarded joy. Yes. Together. And in that moment, as the moon broke through the clouds and shone down upon us, I knew the truth of everything I'd fought to deny. Whatever fate had planned, whatever battles still lay ahead, our souls were one, light and shadow bound together, unbreakable. The wind howled through the valley, sharp with the scent of blood and snow. Bodies lay half buried beneath white drifts, both friend and foe. The morning light had returned, cold and unkind, revealing the cost of what we had won. I stood in the middle of the ruined battlefield, the snow beneath my boots stained pink. The silver glow of my barrier had faded, but its echo still hummed faintly beneath my skin, a lingering warmth that reminded me I had survived. Around me, Kale's wolves moved quietly, tending to the wounded and gathering the fallen. Kale himself stood a few paces away, his back straight and his sword dripping crimson. His breath came out in white clouds, steady despite the exhaustion I could feel thrumming through the bond. When he finally turned toward me, his eyes softened. "You're hurt," he said. I shook my head. "Just tired." He took my hand and examined it anyway. The faint tremor in my fingers gave me away. "You pushed too far," he murmured. "You poured your life into that shield." "If I hadn't," I said quietly, "we'd all be dead." His jaw tightened. "You don't have to carry that alone." I wasn't alone. I met his gaze. "You were with me." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he pulled me close, his hand resting against the back of my head. "And I always will be." The words sank deep into me, grounding me in a way nothing else could. Around us, the battle's noise faded to silence, replaced by the distant calls of wolves returning home. By the time the sun began to set, we had moved the wounded to makeshift tents along the ridge. The healers worked tirelessly, their chants blending with the moan of the wind. I stayed beside Sage, lending what little energy I had left to her healing spells. Every time she looked at me, I saw pride shining in her old eyes. "You've done what few ever could," she said as she wrapped bandages around a soldier's arm. "You protected an entire army. The goddess would be proud." I smiled weakly. "I hope so." I've never been sure what she wanted from me. Sage's hands didn't pause. "Perhaps she wanted you to learn you could choose your own path." I thought about that for a long time after she left me to rest. Kale joined me later at the edge of the encampment. The night had fallen, and the moon glowed pale above the snowfields. He stood in silence for a while, then said softly, "They'll retreat for now. Darius won't risk another fight so soon." "He'll come back," I said. "He's too proud not to." "Yes," Kale admitted. "And when he does, he'll face more than he expects." He turned to me, his expression unreadable. "You're stronger than I imagined, Lyra. But I felt what it cost you to hold that shield. You nearly burned yourself out." "I would have done it again," I said. "For them. For you." He looked away, the muscles in his jaw shifting. "That's what I'm afraid of." The wind rustled through the trees, filling the quiet between us. I could feel the tension in him, not anger, but fear, the kind that comes from caring too much. "Kale," I said softly. "You don't have to protect me from myself." "I'm not trying to," he replied. "I'm trying to make sure you live long enough to see what you've built." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I took a step closer. "And what have I built?" He met my eyes, and for the first time, his voice lost its edge. "Hope." I didn't know what to say. The bond pulsed between us, warm and steady. The distance that had always lingered seemed to vanish. Without thinking, I reached up, brushing snow from his coat. His hand caught mine and held it there against his chest. His heartbeat was fast and strong beneath my palm. "Every time I think I understand what I'm fighting for," he said, "you give me another reason." "Then keep fighting," I whispered. He leaned his forehead against mine. "Always." When we returned to the fortress 2 days later, the pack greeted us with cheers that shook the walls. Bells rang from the towers, and wolves howled in celebration. I tried to smile, but exhaustion pressed heavy on my bones. Kale stayed close beside me as we entered the great hall. The banners of the Northern Guard hung above, silver threads gleaming in the torchlight. Winter and the others waited, their faces proud but wary. "The Crimson Pack won't stop here," Winter warned once the crowd dispersed. "They'll regroup and come again. We need to prepare for a siege." Kale nodded. "We'll be ready." "And what of the girl?" another officer asked, glancing at me. "The power she carries makes her a target." Kale's gaze snapped to him, his tone calm but cold. "She's not a weapon. She's part of this pack. And she'll be treated as such. No one argued after that. When the meeting ended, Cale escorted me to my chambers. I stopped at the doorway, hesitant. You didn't have to defend me like that. Yes, I did, he said. You've earned your place here. He turned to go, but I caught his sleeve. Cale. He looked back. The firelight from the hall flickered across his face, softening the lines of command. Stay, I said before I could stop myself. Just for a while. For once, he didn't hesitate. He stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. We sat by the fire, saying little at first. The silence was different now, comfortable, like the calm between breaths. He watched the flames while I traced the faint mark glowing on my shoulder through the thin fabric of my tunic. It doesn't fade, I said. The bond. It won't, he replied. It's a part of you now. Of us. I turned to look at him. Do you regret it? His eyes lifted to mine, steady and clear. Not once. The answer was simple, but it stole my breath. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. When I took the crown, I swore I'd never bind myself to anyone again. Too many lives depend on my choices. I thought it would make me stronger. Did it? I asked. It made me lonely, he said. Until you. I didn't realize tears had filled my eyes until his thumb brushed one away. You've spent so much of your life protecting others, I whispered. You deserve someone to protect you, too. He smiled faintly. I think I found her. That night, we didn't speak again. We sat in silence, the fire flickering between us, and for the first time, the fortress felt less like stone and more like home. The days after Silver Vale were restless. The fortress buzzed with preparation, repairs to the walls, new defenses built along the river, scouts sent south to watch for any sign of movement. The air smelled of iron and frost, and though the skies were clear, everyone could sense another storm coming. I trained harder than ever. My shields grew stronger, my control smoother. But with each use, I felt the strain build inside me, a quiet warning from the bond. Cale noticed it too. You're drawing on my strength without realizing, he told me one evening after training. When you push yourself too far, I feel it. Does it hurt you? I asked. No, he said. But if you fall, I fall with you. That's how the bond works. I frowned. Then I need to learn to carry it better. He gave a quiet laugh. Always stubborn. I smiled faintly. You wouldn't like me any other way. It happened at dawn. A horn's call split the air, urgent, desperate. I rushed from my quarters, my heart already pounding with the echo of Cale's alarm through the bond. Outside, the snow was red again. The southern gate had been breached. Rogues poured through like a flood of shadows, their eyes glowing with madness. Among them, I saw the crimson banners of my old pack. Darius had returned. Cale met them head-on, his aura blazing like a storm. Hold the line, he shouted. Protect the fortress. I summoned my shield, the silver dome rising high over the courtyard. Arrows shattered against it, sparks lighting the morning air. But there were too many. For every enemy that fell, two more appeared. Lyra. Cale called, his voice raw. Pull back. I shook my head. Not without you. He cut through another rogue and fought his way toward me, but before he could reach my side, I felt it, the pull of dark magic. Someone was twisting the bond, dragging its power toward a single, terrible point. Darius stood on the far side of the field, his hands raised. You think the goddess favors you? He shouted. You're nothing but her mistake. The energy hit like a hammer. My shield shattered. Pain ripped through me, stealing my breath. Cale staggered too, his sword falling from his hand. Through the haze of agony, I saw Darius approaching. She took everything from me, he snarled. Now she'll take you. He raised a dagger wreathed in black energy. The blade was meant for Cale. Something inside me broke open. Light poured from every inch of my skin, blinding and fierce. The bond flared to life, uniting our powers into one. Cale's darkness surged to meet my light, the two forces colliding with a sound like thunder. Together, they swept outward, a wave of silver fire that burned through the rogue army and silenced the battlefield. When it was over, Darius lay motionless, the dagger melted to ash. The valley was still. Snow fell softly, as if nothing had happened. But Cale was on his knees, unmoving. I ran to him, my heart pounding. Cale. No. He lifted his head weakly, eyes glazed with pain. The bond took too much. I held him, tears freezing on my cheeks. "Stay with me. Please." He smiled faintly. "You said you'd protect me." I said fiercely. "You're not dying. Not now." I pressed my hands against his chest, summoning what little power I had left. The light flickered weakly, then steadied. I poured everything into it, every heartbeat, every breath, every piece of hope I had ever known. For a moment, there was nothing but light and silence. Then his heartbeat returned. I collapsed against him, sobbing with relief. He caught me weakly, his arms trembling but steady. "You foolish, brave girl," he whispered. "You saved me again." "You saved me first," I said. He laughed softly, the sound faint but alive. "Then we're even." When we returned to the fortress, the survivors met us with silent reverence. The battle was over. The enemy had scattered, leaderless. The threat of Crimson Hollow had ended at last. Sage tended to Kale in his chambers, scolding him for ignoring her orders even as tears glimmered in her eyes. Winter commanded the cleanup with quiet efficiency, her voice steady despite the exhaustion that lined her face. I stood by the window, watching snow drift down over the valley where so many had fallen. Kale's reflection appeared beside mine in the glass. His skin was pale, but his eyes were bright again. "We won," I said softly. He nodded. "At a cost. But yes, we won." I turned to face him. "And now?" He smiled, slow and tired. "Now we rebuild." He reached for my hand, his fingers warm against mine. The Shadow King and the moon forged. Light and darkness. Maybe the goddess knew what she was doing after all. I squeezed his hand gently. Maybe she just wanted to remind us that we're stronger together. He leaned forward, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Together, then. Always. Outside, the snow fell quietly over Silver Vale, erasing the scars of battle and leaving only light behind. And for the first time, I believed that peace was not just a dream, it was the beginning of something new. The snow melted slowly that spring, revealing patches of green among the mountains that had long slept beneath ice. The war was over. 4 weeks, the fortress filled with the steady sounds of rebuilding, hammer against stone, laughter in the courtyards, wolves returning to their human forms and planting new roots. Peace was still fragile, but it was real. I spent most mornings walking through the valley with Sage and Winter, helping tend to the wounded and offering what strength I could through the bond. Everywhere I went, people bowed, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. It still felt strange. For most of my life, I had been the outcast, the unwanted one. Now, they looked at me with reverence, calling me Luna, as though the word itself carried light. I didn't feel like a Luna. Not yet. But I was learning. Kale had changed, too. The weight that had once made him seem carved from shadow was lighter now. He walked among his people without his crown, his cloak open, sleeves rolled, hands scarred and dirty from rebuilding alongside them. He laughed more often, though never loudly. His voice, once sharp and commanding, had softened into something calm, almost human. One morning, I found him standing by the repaired walls, watching the horizon. "You've been out here since dawn," I said, walking up beside him. He smiled faintly. "Old habits. The alpha who doesn't wake before his pack doesn't deserve to lead them." "You could rest," I said. "They'd still follow you." He shook his head. "They don't follow me because I'm their alpha. They follow because I stand with them." He turned to face me fully. "And now, they look to you." The thought made my stomach twist. "Me?" "Yes." His eyes softened. "They already see you as their Luna, whether you've accepted it or not." I looked down at the snow melting between the stones. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that kind of responsibility." He took my hand. "You already carry it. You've saved them more times than I ever could." I met his gaze, the truth in his words too bright to deny. "And what about you?" I asked. "Are you ready to share your crown?" Kale's smile deepened. "I don't want to share it." He lifted my hand and kissed my knuckles gently. "I want to give it." A week later, the fortress prepared for a celebration unlike any it had seen before. Banners of silver and blue fluttered along the towers, and the great hall filled with the scent of pine and winter roses. Packs from the neighboring territories arrived, their leaders bearing gifts of unity and tribute. For the first time, they weren't coming to test Kale's power, they came to honor it. And to witness something new, the crowning of a Luna born not of blood, but of choice. As the evening sun dipped behind the peaks, I stood before the mirror in my chamber. Sage and Winter helped fasten the silver gown that had been made for me. It shimmered like moonlight caught in water, the fabric cool against my skin. Around my neck hung the pendant Kale had given me, the same symbol that matched the mark on my shoulder. "You look like the goddess herself," Sage said softly. "I look terrified," I admitted. Winter smiled faintly. "Good. Fear keeps you humble. Confidence comes later." When they left me alone, I stood for a moment, staring at my reflection. I thought of the girl I had been, the one who had begged for scraps of kindness, who had been told she was a curse. That girl had died in the snow. What remained was someone new, someone forged from light and shadow both. A knock came at the door. "Lyra?" Kale's voice, low and steady. "Come in." He entered wearing his ceremonial armor, black trimmed with silver, the crest of the Shadowlands etched across the chest. A faint smile touched his lips when he saw me. "You're radiant. You look like a story people tell their children," I said, meaning it. He looked both regal and human, a man who had bled for his crown and still chosen mercy. He stepped closer, offering his arm. "Ready?" I took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes." The great hall glowed with hundreds of candles, their light dancing across the gathered crowd. When we entered, the room fell silent. Kale led me to the dais at the far end, where two thrones waited, one carved of dark stone, one of pale crystal. The contrast made my heart ache with meaning. Kale faced his people. "For centuries," he began, "our world has lived in fear, fear of difference, fear of power, fear of the moon's judgment. But fear builds walls. Today, we build something stronger." He turned to me. "Lyra Vale came to us as an outcast. She stood against her enemies, against the prophecy that sought to destroy her, and she chose hope instead. She has given her strength to this kingdom, her heart to this pack, and her courage to me." He lifted the silver crown from the velvet cloth beside him, a simple circlet shaped like intertwined wolves beneath a crescent moon. "Lyra Vale," he said softly, "will you stand beside me? As Lunar of the Shadowlands, as equal to its alpha, and as guardian of its people." My throat tightened. "I will." He placed the crown on my head. A hush fell over the room, followed by the soft hum of wolves bowing their heads in unison. The sound was like thunder turned gentle, a single heartbeat shared by hundreds. Kale turned to me then, his voice barely a whisper meant only for me. "Rise, Lunar of the Shadowlands." When I stood, the silver light from my crown merged with the faint shadows curling from his armor. Light and dark, side by side. The hall erupted in cheers. Kale took my hand again, and together, we looked out at the pact that had once been broken. Now, they were whole. The celebration lasted long into the night. Music filled the courtyards, wolves danced in both forms, and laughter carried across the snow. I slipped away at some point, escaping to the balcony overlooking the valley. The stars shimmered like frost scattered across the sky. I felt Kale before I saw him. The bond was calm, warm. "You disappeared," he said, joining me. "Just needed air," I said. "It feels strange, being seen like this." He leaned against the railing beside me. "You'll get used to it." "Will I?" He smiled. "Maybe not. That's what makes you different." I looked up at the moon. "Do you ever wonder if the goddess watches us?" He followed my gaze. "If she does, I think she's finally smiling." I laughed quietly. "Because we broke her prophecy?" "Because we proved it could be rewritten," he said. He turned to me then, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. "You were never meant to destroy me, Lyra. You were meant to save me." I felt tears prick my eyes again. We saved each other. Kale's hand cupped my cheek, and for once, there were no words left between us, only the quiet rhythm of the world finally at peace. Years passed, and the story of the Shadow King and the Moon Forge spread beyond the northern peaks. Songs were written, poems whispered, and travelers carried tales of the Lunar who could summon light strong enough to turn back darkness itself. Some said I was the goddess reborn. Others said I was her daughter. I smiled at both stories, though neither was true. I was only Lyra. The fortress had grown. Where ruins once stood, towers now rose, their walls covered with ivy and banners of silver and black. Children played in the courtyards, and laughter had replaced the echoes of war. Kale ruled beside me, not as a king above his people, but as one of them. He spent mornings in the training yards and evenings walking the walls with me. Sometimes we still sparred, though more often we ended in laughter instead of bruises. Peace, we had learned, was not the absence of struggle, it was the choice to rebuild every day. One morning, I stood in the same courtyard where Kale had first trained me. A group of young wolves gathered before me, their eyes wide with curiosity. Some had only just discovered their gifts, Others had yet to shift at all. Do you know what it means to be moon-forged? I asked them. A boy with golden fur raised his hand. It means you're powerful. I smiled. Power is part of it. But the real meaning is choice. The moon-forged were said to be born from the goddess's tears, not because she pitied them, but because she trusted them to carry both light and shadow inside without letting either consume them. A girl frowned thoughtfully. So, it's about balance. Exactly, I said. Balance and belief. You don't have to be born of moonlight to have strength. You only have to decide you're worthy of it. The children nodded, and I saw myself in each of their faces, the fear, the hope, the unspoken hunger to belong. I knew they would grow up in a world that no longer feared what made them different. That was enough. When the lesson ended, Cale appeared at the edge of the yard, watching with quiet pride. You're a better teacher than I ever was, he said as the children left. I grinned. That's because they like me more. He laughed. True. As the years passed, the Shadowlands became a haven for those who had nowhere else to go. Packs once divided by fear came seeking alliance. Rogues were given sanctuary, their loyalty earned through compassion instead of blood. The borders that had once been guarded by war were now crossed by traders and travelers bringing stories and hope. One evening, as twilight painted the sky violet, Cale and I stood together on the highest balcony. The valley below shimmered with lights from the village that had grown at the fortress's base. You built this, he said quietly. We built it, I corrected. He nodded. Do you think it will last? I looked out at the distant mountains. As long as they remember why we fought, it will. He took my hand. And when we're gone? I smiled. Then the moon will remember for us. That night, as the moon rose full and bright, I walked to the same garden where Cale had once shown me the flowers that bloomed only in winter. They still glowed softly, untouched by time. I knelt beside them, tracing one with my finger. Cale joined me, his presence a steady warmth beside my shoulder. You still come here. It reminds me where it all began, I said. The night you told me beauty could live in the cold. He smiled. You proved it. We sat there for a while, watching the stars. The world was quiet, at peace. My crown felt light on my head, not as a burden, but as a promise fulfilled. I looked up at the sky, at the full moon that had once cursed and blessed me in the same breath. The moon didn't curse me, I whispered to the stars. She crowned me. Cale's arm slipped around my shoulders, pulling me close. And she gave me you. The wind stirred, soft and silver, carrying our laughter through the garden and across the valley. The flowers glowed brighter, as if the moon herself was smiling down upon us. And in that light, I finally understood, our story wasn't one of survival or power. It was a story of transformation, of broken things made whole, of two souls who had learned that love was not the absence of shadow, but the light that endured within it. The moon shone above us, eternal and bright, and for the first time since I could remember, I felt truly home. If you loved Lyra and Cale's journey from exile to destiny, don't let their light fade here. Subscribe for more stories where power meets heart, darkness finds its match, and every ending sparks a new beginning. Dizzy, hit that bell, join the pack, and let the moon guide you to the next chapter.